Okay, so understatement would be the opposite of hyperbole, right? Understatement is a process of, very deliberately making something seem less important than it is in reality, right? So describing something with less fervor, less passion, less weight, less heft than you think it might be. More properly explained. Now, sometimes writers, or probably we're going to deal with a non-fiction mode there, and we're not really in non-fiction, but sometimes speakers or writers use understatement in order to gloss over an idea so that they can kind of explain it away. I think of a lot of kind of political rhetoric, by a politician kind of understating a particular problem or a particular issue, right? But poets, tend to use understatement somewhat differently. They tend to use understatement in a way that, makes something seem smaller, but then, of course, that causes the reader to say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? What is the poet, what's really being expressed here? So by making something very deliberately seem, or at least on the surface, seem unimportant, what actually happens, right? What actually happens is that you draw attention to its importance and maybe some kind of holes in our understanding or weaknesses in our kind of the fabric of humanity that we're being asked to look at. So, for example, we've got Fire and Ice by Robert Frost. I pull him up a lot because he's a great American poet. So it's obviously a very short poem, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and read it. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to know that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice, right? So if we look at this, he's talking about the end of the world, right? Which is a whole gosh darn big deal, right? And so we can see, and we could talk about the line length and how he does that there. But I just want to draw your attention to the end of the poem. I think I know enough of hate to know that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice, right? So by kind of understating the fact that, well, ice, right? Ice would also do it and it would suffice. That would be enough. And so using those kind of very calm, measured, unhurried, unbothered words to describe the destruction of the world is understatement, right? So does that mean that the speaker here believes that the destruction of the world is not a big deal? I don't think so at all. I think that what's happening here is that because it is so understated, we're drawn to the fact that maybe we overlook some really awful things like hatred, right? So I think it's calling us to look more carefully and look at maybe at our own hypocrisy and failings that we tend to think are not such a big deal. I could go on, but you kind of get the sense there of the understatement here in Fire and Ice about the destruction of the world. It would suffice, right? So understatement.